Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is VooDoo Val, and I am so excited to host the spotlight for today with the one and only Unmesh Dinda. Hello, how are you today?
Doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. It has been a long time since I've been on Adobe Live. I think the last time was 4 years ago. So it's
Oh,
been quite a
okay.
while, and I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we've missed you. Today is going to be pretty spectacular, I think. But for those of you who are in the chat, we would love to say a big welcome. Thank you, Raquel, for joining us today. I see Michelle is in here, McKenna, Creativo, welcome in. Cody Bear is our moderator for today. So thank you so much, Cody Bear, for coming to hang out. I see Howard Pinsky is in the chat. Welcome in,
Yeah,
Howard. Good to see
fantastic.
you. And Keys. So many familiar faces, so many good friends of the Adobe Live community are hanging out with us today. I would love just like kind of get the ball rolling here. Why don't you do a little intro for yourself, just in case
Mhm.
anybody is unfamiliar with you and your work.
All
Who are
right.
you, and tell us about the magic you do.
So I started with Photoshop when I was 8 years old, and it's been quite a while. I'm not going to say how many years, otherwise, you're going to guess my age. So it's been quite a while, and I started teaching Photoshop in about 7 years, 7 or 8 years ago. So I've been teaching Photoshop for that long, and I have to say one thing. Not a lot of people will admit this, and that is 90% of what I know about Photoshop I learned when I started teaching. So
Hmm.
that's what, yeah. So that's what I do, and so far I've created over 950 videos, and I also
Wow.
create videos on Instagram as well as YouTube, and that's what I do. I teach Photoshop. I started with Photoshop as I uh, started with Photoshop as somebody who was playing with Photoshop.
Hmm.
Started with like a video game. So my father introduced me to Photoshop when I was 8 years old, and he just said, "All right, so this is how the program is. This is what it does." And then all I did was play with our vacation photos, play with our family photos. I would change the heads, change the color of people, change their clothes, make the heads bigger, the arms smaller, and all that kind of funky stuff. And that's how it all started.
That's so wonderful. I feel like that's a very relatable process though. And I do love what you said about like learning a lot of what you know about Photoshop through teaching. I think sometimes teaching is the best lesson for the instructor,
It
right?
absolutely is. It
Because you know
absolutely
how to
is.
use it for
Right?
you, but how
Right.
to use it for other people. I feel like this is kind of a great segue into some of the questions that we have for today. And the first would be kind of what initially maybe inspired you to start teaching? Because, you know, we know where you got your start with Photoshop in general, but when did you think like, oh, I want to share this with other people and show people what I'm doing and how to do things? How did that get started?
So learning Photoshop was not very easy for me as I didn't have much access to internet or resources. So
Hmm.
most of what I learned about Photoshop in the starting years was with trial and errors. I was clicking on each and every tool, what does this do? Or trying out different filters, what does that do? And I was just experimenting with different images. And growing up as a student, it was very hard for me to kind of afford courses, right? And back then, when I was starting out, I also didn't have much access to YouTube because internet was pretty expensive. We had to
Hmm.
pay per use. So I had to think about clicking or whether I should click on a video or not because that would consume some data. So
Hmm.
learning Photoshop was not easy for me, and also affording a course was not easy for me. So when I did that, I just wanted to give back, and I just wanted to make sure that anybody who wants to learn Photoshop like me doesn't have to go through the same difficulties that I did. So that's why in my second year of Photoshop, I started teaching Photoshop on YouTube. And it all started very simply by teaching Photoshop to my classmates. So we would get
Hmm.
an assignment. I did a bachelor's in mass media and advertising. So Photoshop was a subject, graphic design was a subject, a small subject. Photography was a small subject in one semester. So Photoshop was an integral part of that. So uh, I was somebody who was helping my classmates with Photoshop, and that's how it all started. And that's when I also started creating videos as well, just to help out people around me. That's all.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful because I feel like, you know, we when you learn Photoshop the hard way, you know, you start to
Right.
really be able to pick out like the moments where you're like, gosh, I wish I would have known this, I wish I would have
Right.
known this hotkey, this shortcut, this, helped me so much. So I think that's wonderful. And for those of you who are interested, we do have the PiXimperfect link in the chat. Thank you so much, Cody, for getting that in there. I'm sure a lot of you are already subscribed or have at least seen the videos and are probably familiar to you. But if not, this is probably one of the greatest resources, in my opinion, for Photoshop. I was
Well,
telling
thank
you earlier, you have helped me learn so much about
well,
Photoshop.
thank you. That
Um,
really means a lot. Yeah.
you're very welcome. So definitely, everyone in the chat, click that link. And on the topic of PiXimperfect, how did you go from learning Photoshop and then making the decision to teach Photoshop to,
Mhm.
your classmates and stuff? But then like somewhere around there, it went from being helpful to turning into this massive, leading educational program, really. So how did that become PiXimperfect?
So I have to be honest with you. I don't know whether Adobe is going to like this, and that is there is something that I love more than Photoshop, and that is
Oh,
teaching.
okay. I think they'll let that one slide.
I hope so. I really hope so. So, interestingly, a lot of people think that I don't have a life outside of Photoshop. Everything I post, people are like, "Is it Photoshop? Is it done in Photoshop? Is it processed? Or did you just make yourself slimmer in Photoshop in this photo?" But anyway, that's a different. I've been associated with Photoshop somehow. But the thing is, there is something I love more than that, and that is teaching. I
Mhm,
remember that I was also interested in physics, and because of that, a lot of those principles I could bring into when teaching Photoshop concepts of light, concepts of hue, saturation, lightness, or brightness. And that was very helpful to me with teaching. So um, I love teaching, and I remember that as a school student, I would be the one who would raise hand anytime the teacher would ask any question. I was a good
mhm,
student. I
mhm.
would say that. And the teacher would call me onto the blackboard and ask me to explain certain concepts. And whatever the concept might be, I was always very happy to do that. And I might not be the best Photoshop artist, and I know I'm not. There are bazillions of people who are much better than me. But I do know one thing, that I'm very good at breaking down concepts, no matter whether it's Photoshop or any other subject. If I understand it, and again, I have to understand it first, it has to, my average brain should have the understanding of that. But if I understand it, I can break down complex topics and complex concepts into something so simple that even a 10-year-old can understand. So that was my skill, and that is my skill. And that's what really uh, translates into this. And, you know, that's why I love teaching.
I think that really shows in the work that you in the instruction that you present, because I think that you have, training available that is very in depth, like going into these tools and techniques and things that will be useful. But you also do something that I absolutely love, and I'm sure I could speak for those who are in the chat, where sometimes what we need really is just like a YouTube short that shows you how to do something quickly, or a very short video, that because I'm in the middle of my workflow, and
Right.
I need to look, and I can definitely see that like you are incredibly adept at grasping the basics of something, or like the main points of a technique and concept, and you can present them to me quickly, right when I need them, and I get all of the knowledge I need that some people do in like a 15-minute video. You've just been like boom boom boom, there you go, and I'm like, thank you, now I can get back to work. So I
Well,
love it.
the thing with content creation is you cannot please everybody.
Hmm.
I am guilty of creating 40-minute videos, but I've also created videos that are like 40 seconds or even
Hmm.
10 seconds. So it really depends upon the level of learning that you want to do and the kind of time you want to give it. So that's all. And
Hmm.
then again, it is important to get to the point. What I've learned in all of these years of content creation is that I'm not sure who said it, but somebody said this quote, and it was like, "If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter." And I think it is the same with, I think it
Yes.
is the same with YouTube, because you can start the camera right now if you're good with speaking, which you're excellent with. You can start, and I can start it, and I can start rambling, and it can turn into a 1 hour video. But if we
Hmm.
planned ahead, And if we plan, all right, these are the topics that are important, these are the concepts people need to know, and this is why they have clicked on the video. For example, they have clicked on the video on how to create a shadow. And then
Hmm.
I start teaching them how to create a shadow with curves, and then I get distracted and start teaching them the concept of curves, and the video becomes 2 hours. So
Hmm.
it all depends upon how prepared are you and sticking to what what you're teaching. That's all.
Hmm. I agree, and I think that there's a time for the 40-minute video and there's a time for the 40-second video, and I think both are equally valuable depending on what problem your audience is trying to solve. And you're kind of talking about like kind of going through that learning process yourself of like figuring out what is the best approach to making these videos and how to present the information and stuff. And I wonder if you faced any similar lessons learned moments or any other challenges as you started to like develop this platform in the early stages, like and how you might have overcome those lessons as well. Like anything as you were going through and you're thinking, man, I have to figure out how to do this differently, rather it was the content you were making or the organization, maybe the presentation of all this stuff.
Mhm. As a content creator yourself, I think you already know this, and
Yeah.
that is we have to understand one thing for sure, and that is you cannot please everyone. No matter what you do, there's going to be
Hmm.
somebody complaining all the time. Somebody would say, and I don't blame anybody. I would be the person complaining as well, depending upon what I want from a video. The thing is, if you post something longer, let's say 20 minutes, and there is going to be somebody who's saying that this is too long. I
Hmm.
really don't like it. And on the same video, sometimes there is somebody who would say that this could be a longer video, you're going too fast. So you never know. When you make a shorter video, some people might say that you missed out this, you missed out that. So there is no way to please everyone. So what
Hmm.
I do these days that I should have done before, and I always consider that this is a good strategy, and that is having both short version and a longer version of the same video. And these days with shorts, I think it is important just to have a shorts version of that one as well. Because why
Yeah.
not? Once you have that content prepared, it's very easy to do. And yeah, that's a good strategy for somebody who's looking for a shorter form. They can search for it. You can link it up in the same video. It just works out. Also, when it comes to presenting, I think you use that feature as well.
Hmm.
And the idea is just understanding it from the perspective of an audience. The audience is going through the playback, and while they do, there are these things in YouTube called chapters. And
Hmm.
chapters is something that I've started implementing for the last, I guess, 3 years. Earlier, I didn't used to do that, but anything that helps an audience is a fair game. A lot of people don't use chapters thinking that they might just skip to the section they want, but they will skip anyway. So it's
Hmm.
best to have chapters. And, once you have watched a channel with chapters, for example, whatever content you watch, for example, you watch, let's say, car reviews, right?
Hmm.
Or something like that. And I watched a video on car reviews and I saw that they are broken down into chapters. There is one chapter talking about the performance, there's other chapter talking about the design. I'm interested in the performance, so I skip to that. Now, some people might think that this is wrong because he's skipping to just to that section. But the thing is, I remember that this YouTube channel properly uses chapters. So the next
Hmm.
time I see a video from that channel, I'm going to choose that over the other ones because the things are organized and I'm watching only the thing that I need.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think too, like it's really great to, like you said, kind of cater to a lot of different things, and a rule of thumb, which I think is great advice to anybody who's also working towards kind of making their own videos, is like any little things like that you feel could enhance your viewerships, like their I suppose journey through your content. Anything that could be helpful to them is great to put in, and to remember that you cannot please everyone. And I think I've felt that before. I'm sure there's folks in the chat today who have felt that before. And for me personally, I generally am just like, there's so many ways to do things in Photoshop,
Right.
that this is my way today. My way might be different in a month, or maybe I'll just show you a secondary way that you could also do it. There's always going to be people who are like, well, that's not right. But I don't know that there is a right way to use Photoshop as long as you are trying to be efficient with it while also having a good time. What would you say? Do you feel like there's a right way to learn and use Photoshop?
All right, before I say that, do I need to turn down my audio? I think there was just a tap. Okay, great.
Short videos can act as a billboard for longer content. Yes, indeed. That was from Howard Pinsky. And I think that's 100% true. Like, hey, watch the longer one.
All the time. I think you asked about something. You asked about what is the right way
Mhm.
to learn Photoshop, right? Or
Yeah,
what is
to
the right
learn
way? Is
or
there a
to
right way to
use
do things
it.
in Photoshop?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Now here is the thing. I'm gonna give you a nice example.
Okay.
Do you use levels in Photoshop?
I sometimes use levels in Photoshop, but I mean, sometimes it's attached to my mood, like how do I feel?
I was just recording a video and also doing a class. I am
Mhm.
somebody who's a complete opponent and oppose using levels in Photoshop.
Okay,
And
okay.
now I'm going to tell you why. The reason is there are two tools in Photoshop very similar, and that is levels and curves.
Mhm,
Now, you can think of levels as a simpler version of curves. Everything that you can do in levels, you can do in curves, and in the curves, you can do a bit more. The sliders are same, the eyedroppers are same, curves has more functionality, but so there is no reason to use levels at all, technically.
mhm,
Ever. A lot of people, and that's why I asked you, including yourself, including the top professional photographers, award-winning photographers that I've spoken to, they use levels too.
mhm,
Some don't, some do. The reason why they do that is because they are used to it and that's the way they started and they just find it very comfortable. That is the
mhm.
only reason. So the point is, there is no right or wrong way of doing things. If a tool gets the job done for you, you like using that tool. And that's all that matters, to be honest. If it's
Yeah,
getting the job done for you, that is the best tool for you. There is no debate about what is the best technique or the right technique and what is the wrong technique. At the end of the day, if it's getting your job done, that's all that matters, right?
yeah, I think we're on 100% the same page with this. The only like situation I could really think of where like you're using it wrong or you're doing it wrong is like if you have a deadline to meet, maybe don't do it the
Mhm.
long way. Learn some tricks and techniques to kind of expedite that process. But really, I think there is a lot to be said for the personal joy that you feel when you're working through your process. Like, yeah, there's plenty of ways that I could finish an illustration that would do it quickly. But what if I love the long way around for certain portions? That's where my creative joy comes into play.
And
And
of
I
course,
think
you should do it
that's
if you're getting
important.
paid by the hour.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. But yeah, I've never really felt like there's a wrong way to do it, and everybody has their own methods. And I think that you could probably find two people who do the same kind of work and touch completely different tools, and that's
Absolutely.
okay. That's
That is absolutely right.
okay.
Now, as a teacher, I would always recommend certain practices like working non-destructively, working in a way
Yes.
so that it can
Hmm.
adjust the stuff later, so on and so forth. But some people on purpose like to work destructively because they like to work like an artist who's painting on a canvas
Hmm.
and do not want that many options so that they can get confused later. So it's your style, do it your way. Photoshop is just a tool to express yourself. That is
Yeah.
all there is to it. It is not something to be intimidated about. It is just a tool, just like a brush, it is just a tool. How
Hmm.
you use it is up to you.
I think that's 100% right. I could not agree more. And I think kind of to add to what you've said about, using it the way that's best for you and all of those things is like it's kind of one of those things also that you sort of build up with. So these things that you learn at first, it can seem a little bit daunting when you dive into it, but as you start to kind of pinpoint what you need out of Photoshop, then you can start to really hone that skill, and what you need could be different than what other people need.
Right.
So it's all right. We've got some
Some people
folks
have
in,
to. Yeah. Go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I was just going to say we have hashtag team curves happening in
Yes.
the chat.
Right.
So we do have some
Levels
team
versus
curves.
curves. Curves win all the time.
And I would love to know if there's a team levels. I don't know that I'm team levels necessarily, but it's like you said, it's perfect your explanation, because I don't use levels because I think it's superior. I use levels because it's one of the first ones I learned to use. So I like
Mhm.
to, snag that when I can. We have Robert in chat saying, it's been 4 years, 5 months, and 12 days since I've been a member of PiXimperfect. So he's been watching for years, it seems like. Frank is saying, PiXimperfect is my lifesaver place when I struggle with a technique. And Keys has brought up something that I think is amazing. And I think it every time I watch one of your videos, and that is, you have such a pleasant voice.
Oh,
You are a great teacher, just with your knowledge that you're
Photoshop.
sharing, but you present that information in a way that is soothing, to the mind, especially when I've hit a wall, I have a problem,
Mhm.
and then we can just listen to your kind voice and you will help us.
Thank you. You never know. It may be photoshopped.
Yeah, it could be, maybe. How, kind of like on that mode of like teaching and the best ways to learn and all that kind of stuff. Would you say that from the beginning of, doing all of this stuff, that there has been any like defining moments where you either had to change the way that you were teaching, or moments that along that journey that you feel significantly impacted your process, your
Mhm.
career?
All right. I never really changed the way I was teaching. For me,
Mhm.
what my most important thing was, whenever there was a camera, and I still do this to this date, when I look at the camera, uh, it is the most important thing for you is to smile. That is
Mhm.
100%. Otherwise, you won't be able to connect with your audience. The second thing is, again, I'm not giving you directions. You already know this. You're a wonderful person. I'm
Thank
just
you.
saying this in general. I'm saying this in general. The best thing that I have found, and again, this is something that I've imagined to do and that has worked for me, is that when I was starting out, and I still do this sometime, if I'm recording in front of the camera, and if it's not a call, like I'm talking to you, I can see your face, right? That is
Mhm.
fantastic. But if I'm recording in front of a camera, I imagine one of my best friends watching me instead of the
Mm.
camera. And I'm
Mm.
teaching to one of my well wishers and my best friends. And when I imagine that, I I don't have to even think about it. I just genuinely smile. So you just have to imagine that somebody you know, somebody you love, somebody who loves you, and somebody who appreciates you is watching instead of the camera looking at you. And it just becomes so much easier to also explain the concept, explain it in a way that people feel very comfortable. And also,
Mhm.
what I'm trying to convey is that Photoshop is simple. You don't have to be intimidated by it. So just to get that comfort across, it really helps to imagine somebody that you like.
I
That is all.
think that is such good advice. And I will also add, because I've been live streaming
Mhm.
myself for a lot of years, and I've sort of listened to other streamers, people who are doing it live, or doing, editing videos after the fact, say kind of share their tips. And some people say that they put googly eyes on their camera
Oh,
so they
I
can
did not
like
know that.
like make eye contact with their camera, so they have like googly eyes on the
Uh-huh,
camera. Or some people say they will get like a little stuffed animal and put
uh-huh.
on top of the camera, so they have like, if they forget, because sometimes you're in your office making
Right.
videos by yourself sometimes, and you can forget that you're supposed to be connecting for especially video recording later. So there's little tricks that you can do to remind yourself as well that someone will watch this, someone will see this. And sometimes it's just a matter of putting eyes on inanimate objects. You just put some eyes on your microphone, put some eyes on your camera, on your monitor, and if it feels like it's looking at you, maybe you will look back at it and remember.
That genuinely is something new I learned. I might even go ahead and try it. I have a microphone on top of my camera, which looks like hair, and
Yeah,
maybe I can just have some eyes on it, and it will be fantastic.
just make
I have
yourself a
to get
little
that.
friend.
Absolutely. And especially in a job like this where you're doing social media content, you do definitely are in need of friends. It's
Hmm.
it's very isolating, that is for sure. So I just
Yeah.
also want to convey this that this uh, even as a graphic designer, even as a photo editor, or these freelance jobs or these work is kind of a bit isolating. So you have to keep
Hmm.
yourself, you have to find ways to collaborate with other creators, find ways to keep yourself entertained. So that's a good tip.
And maybe that can be like kind of a small aside, we've been talking about your evolution from, first getting your hands on Photoshop into sort of what you're doing now, but on a personal level, like how did you navigate those moments where you started to maybe feel that isolation, and how did you reach out? Maybe it was, just a matter of talking to people who were watching your content. I imagine that
Mhm.
probably happened as well, but I'm sure everybody in the chat has felt that kind of
Yeah.
isolating feeling. And I would love to know how you sort of worked through that, or how do you reach out when you feel it?
I'm not gonna lie to you, it is still there.
Mm, mm.
There is no doubt about it. It is still there. I'm not gonna be smiling in front of the camera and just lie through my teeth that it is not. It is still there. It's kind of a sacrifice you make because when you're creating social media content or any kind of content on yourself, you're really dependent on yourself entirely. It is just like a one-man band trying to do everything. Even if
Mhm,
I were to hire somebody to do parts of the job, it would still be me managing them.
mhm,
It's not a regular job that you go to some place and you do the job and you come back. You have to have at it. And because of that, there are days and there have been days when I wake up. So I have set my office in such a way that it is in my home. So I've set my studio here, and right
mhm,
next to it, I have my bedroom. So I
mhm.
wake up and directly come to my studio. I don't have any excuse to not work. So I
Yeah.
start working, have lunch here, or maybe would go to the other room and have lunch, and then come back, work here. And there are days, as I told you, when I would wake up, start working, and stop working and then sleep at night. So a whole day from 7 a.m. to 12 at night, there are days when I'm working. So it's inevitable. There is going to be times like that. But through this career, I have made, several wonderful connections and some of the best friends that I could possibly ask for
Mhm,
through, through people who do the same stuff. So as I was doing this, uh, somebody recognized me and they wanted me to be at their conference. And this was about 6 years ago. So I
mhm,
went to the conference, taught a lot of people, made a lot of connections. And from then on, I went to Photoshop World. It used to be a conference. Now they don't do it in person. They do it live, but they don't do it in person. They used to do it in person. Adobe used to be a big part of it. They used to also have a stage in that conference, Photoshop World. So
mhm.
somebody from Adobe recognized me and saw me present there. And then from then on, I went to Adobe Max. Then I made connections inside of Adobe. Then I started working with Adobe. And, that's how it all started. And throughout all of those processes, I made a lot of friends and connections that that I can reach out to when I need.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think I really relate to that as well. Just like you, my studio is in my house. My bedroom's
Right.
right over there. I get up in the morning, grab my coffee, I go to work, and sometimes I'm in my house all day. I have to remind
Right.
myself, go outside, maybe if you have the time. So it does kind of turn into to that. And I think that I feel that sense, every day. And I have other design friends that I've made along the way, as you said. And sometimes I just will message somebody and say, "Hello, I am alive. Are you alive?" And he says, "Hello, I am alive." Are you alive? And then we go back to our work, but even small moments like that can really work wonders to kind of raise you back up. So don't forget that there's a creative world out there, folks. And other creative people would love to hear from you, even just to say hello. Hope you're having a good Tuesday. Do that for your friends. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do it for other people. You never
Mm.
know, somebody might really, really need it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And just as a reminder for you folks in the chat, we are coming up kind of on the halfway point here. We've got about 25 minutes left, and I'm just going to kind of go through because I see some questions coming in. Howard Pinsky has a question for you, and that is, how was your transition from creating videos in a room by yourself to presenting at events in front of large groups of people? So I would love to know how that went, because for me it was terrifying.
Okay. I don't know. It was very natural for me. I absolutely love that. In fact, I felt more natural doing it in person than doing it in video. And part of the
Really?
reason is, yes, I did. And part of the reason is, I think why I love to be in front of the camera and love to talk to the microphone is because I was put onto the stage a lot of times while I was in school. Whether
Mm,
whenever there would be a function, they would ask me to be the host of that function. Whenever
mm,
something to be addressed in the assembly, they would have me address that. Whenever the teacher wanted to call somebody to teach in front of the class, I would be the one reading or a passage or something in front of the class. So it really came in natural to me. In fact, a lot of people don't know this. I'm actually a very, 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 very shy person. It is hard for me to kind of make in-person contacts, and I'm just a very shy person by nature. But when it comes to public speaking, it just is very comfortable. It's a weird, weird, weird thing.
maybe because of like you're prepared for what you are presenting, but then maybe the social interaction, who knows where the conversations will take you. So maybe it's a little nerve-wracking. I feel that a little bit because I
Mhm.
did a lab at Max and I was like, okay, I'm drawing upon my live streaming stuff
Uh-huh.
here, but it was the first time that like my classes always see me, but I never see them. So like it was really weird looking into the audience and like seeing the reaction of people. And I did get really nervous. I was like my hand was shaking and stuff, but I did end up enjoying it, and I
You
think
know,
that I would
I
recommend it.
relate with that. I relate with that, and I relate because I used to have the same feeling when I
Mm,
started doing that back in school. But by the time I was teaching Photoshop, I had done it so many times.
mm.
But back in school, I would remember, especially, I don't know if you went to singing competitions or you had some moments where you had to sing in front of your whole school. Your
Yes,
voice
yeah.
trembles sometimes, and that you can use that to your advantage to have that nice trembly effect to your voice.
Yes, yes.
So that I can definitely relate with that. But now it's like a switch. I don't
Mhm.
feel shy anymore. It's like a switch. Whenever I'm on presentation mode, you just turn on that presentation switch on, and it's just like I'm talking to the audience like I've known them for 2 decades. So it's fun. I just enjoy it to the fullest.
You have an alter ego, and my alter ego is exactly like me, but she's not afraid to be here. That's the difference. And as we kind of move through, let us know, folks, if you have more questions. I think I do see some more coming in from Keys and stuff, talking about. Let's see, working away from home. It looks like Keys is kind of talking about, when you have your studio sort of in your home and there's something going on around your home that is out of your control, like how do you go through doing work for that? I think that's pretty real, because sometimes
I
my
have
neighbor
an
decides
answer.
he wants to,
Yeah,
yeah, he wants to
right.
mow his lawn. So how do you handle things like that?
So, for a long time while I was in college, maybe my third year, and even after that, I was living in a busy place in Mumbai. And there was always construction noise all the time. There was always something going on. There was always honking of the traffic because it was a skyscraper in the middle of the road, and it was crazy.
Oh
So
man.
and then I also had to go to college. So my college would be at 7:30, 8 a.m. But
Hmm.
I used to live in the suburbs. I used to live far away because I couldn't afford the rent. So I had to go by train 2 hours. So I used to had to leave like, I don't know, 4 a.m. or something. So what I used to do then, and this is something that I sometimes still do when there is no choice and when there is noise. Now I don't live in a place that is so noisy on purpose. So uh, I used to wake up at around, I remember, 2:30 to 3.
Hmm.
Uh, the night before, I would prepare all the materials. I would record it. I would record my videos and then get ready for college and go to it. So you have to find times where you can do the recording, and usually it is around the midnight where everybody is quiet. It is just a
Hmm.
fantastic time, or very early in the morning. So adaptability is important. There are some things that are not beyond your control. I know it is frustrating because let's say you spend a lot of money for rent, or you spend a lot of money to buy your house, and you want some peace and quiet, and you feel like it is your right, but there are certain things that are not in your control.
Hmm.
You have to adapt to it, find out some way, find out the times when there is quiet, and then record during those times.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes you have to adapt to your surroundings. And speaking of adapting to one's surroundings, I think that can kind of go very applicable into adapting to the current landscape of Photoshop. Like, I would love to know how you have adapted and like kept up to date on like what's new in Photoshop. Like, how do you keep things relevant, know what you're going to show. And as an aside, how do you stay relevant with Photoshop news, but also do you have any favorites and things that you've done recently with some of the new stuff?
There are several ways to stay up to date with Photoshop, and
Mhm.
one of the easiest things to do is to just search what is new in Photoshop, and you'll
Yes.
find a lot of resources again. So when you do search what is new in Photoshop, you can open Adobe's own website, which has a very detailed list of
Hmm.
whatever that is new. Or you can search what's new in Photoshop and then type in Adobe so that Adobe's official website shows up.
Hmm.
Or if you're looking for something new, search at PiXimperfect. You'll always find an updated video about the new stuff in Photoshop, which even Adobe sometimes might not cover. Because,
Wow.
yeah,
Pixelperfect. That sounds really, really helpful. You guys should
well,
check
thank
it
you.
out.
Absolutely. You should. So those are, I look at Adobe's website. Plus, I am very fortunate, very, very fortunate to have some wonderful friends who create Photoshop. So I
Hmm.
have an insight of what is happening and what can happen and what may happen. So, and they also have been very grateful in pointing out different faults inside of Photoshop so that I talk about it. And what I really love about Adobe that they're very open to criticism. So if there's a feature that I don't like, I'm very I like that a lot that I can just criticize about it. And when I do criticize, some of the Adobe engineers would sometimes comment on that video. And that's how I also made a few friends as well.
Yeah. For the most part though, because I feel like it's they do really care about how we feel about the application, like how are we using it? What is frustrating us? What is not? What do we really, really love? So I bet, those were really wonderful moments, honestly, for making good Photoshop friends of like,
Oh, just wanted to, I'm so sorry to cut you off. Didn't mean
oh
to do
no,
that.
go for
I
it.
just wanted to give some resource to people looking for new stuff. Of course, you can look at PiXimperfect,
Hmm.
but other places you can look at is Photoshop beta forums. So when you search for Photoshop beta, there would be a link in Google you'll find if you click on it, it will take you to the forum of Photoshop beta. I'm talking about the public beta, and there you'll find a list of new announcements, and there is where you can always find some new features. And I recommend that you test it out so that
Hmm.
Photoshop team knows where it is going with it, whether you like it or not. They really listen to your feedback. They really read when you write in a feedback.
Yes.
I have friends they really say that I read that. So please be writing those feedbacks when you're using beta features.
Absolutely, and I would also recommend the user voice, and real people who are like, what are people feeling about Photoshop today? So definitely check out those resources. We can get some of those links in the chat for you. We have the PiXimperfect link in the chat. We can get the user voice and the forum links in there as well, so you guys can check them out. And kind of going forward, because we've got maybe 15 minutes. I know that you have made a lot of videos. You've got like nearly 1,000 videos, I think, right? Did you say you had like?
Minus 40, 950 or something.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Videos that have helped us all for so many years, and impacted us. I am left to wonder though if you have any favorites. Do you have any favorite tutorials? They could be tutorials that you happened to maybe find the process fun, maybe something you did recently that you thought was particularly interesting, or just a lasting memory that you have. Are there any favorites in that repertoire of
There are
videos?
many favorites. There are many favorites. If you ask me, even favorites have a category. Like
Hmm.
favorite in terms of the video that has helped the most people, favorite in terms of video that has created the most stir, or favorite in terms of some of the crazy ways. So, uh, if you had asked me this question maybe about 2 years ago, I would have said my favorite video definitely is Mastering Curves in Photoshop, the complete guide. It is
Nice.
it is it is also one of the most thought out videos I have made that and if you watch it, you will never be confused about using curves in Photoshop and you will be team curves forever. I will convince you in that video why curves is better. And it's not just that, it's one of the most versatile tools in Photoshop. You can do color grading, you can do
Mhm.
color correction, you can match composites, or you can paint light, whatever you want to do in Photoshop. The curves is an integral part. Now, what my current favorite at the moment is there's a video I made. It's a 40-minute video, but a lot of people watched it. And it's on, if you open up PiXimperfect, that's on the main intro video inside of PiXimperfect. And that is um, the complete, and that's an introduction to Photoshop. It's a complete guide to Photoshop for beginners. It's a
Mhm.
40-minute video and it has helped. I love that video the most at the moment. It's one of my favorite videos because it has helped the most number of people. So if you're
Yeah, I've
yeah,
actually
I
got
can.
it up too. And yeah, feel free if you want to pull it up so that everybody can see it. That would be great. I've got it, and it is like the video that's like right on that front page there. Um, like a hello from you as soon as you go to the YouTube channel, which is really awesome. Oh, I think you're muted. You're muted.
All right.
There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me now?
Awesome. Yes.
All right. So what I wanted to share is this one, Photoshop for complete beginners, lesson one. I'm sorry. So YouTube changed the layout a little bit, but the point
Mhm.
is, this is the video, Photoshop for complete beginners. I'm so sorry. Let me turn that off. Okay. This is one of my favorite videos, and people search for it still, people watch it still, and it just helped the most amount of people. The reason why I say that is because if you're somebody who has never used Photoshop,
Mhm.
this is going to be the video that's definitely going to help you figuring out what Photoshop is, how it works, and what you need to do with it, and also has some fun projects at the end as well. And it's also a part of the playlist. So if I'm allowed, I would like to show this.
Yes, please.
Um,
Please do.
yes. So this is the playlist right here, which I recommend anyone who's starting with Photoshop to watch. This is Photoshop for Complete Beginners playlist. And YouTube has changed the way things work. But just know that all you need to do is to open up this playlist right here. And that is Photoshop for Beginners, the complete course. This one.
Oh,
I hope you can show it.
wonderful.
Yeah. So it has a 12 videos. It's a set of 12 videos. And yeah, even if you just watch the first video, when you first open Photoshop, I'm sure you hear this. whenever somebody new first opens Photoshop, they're always confused and intimidated about so many buttons and so many features and so many things. So where do I do? Where do I click? And whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So this video is aimed at taking that intimidation away. It's for anyone who has never opened Photoshop in their life. So that's my current favorite video, I would say.
Gosh, what a valuable video too, because I feel like I've heard so often that that moment you're describing, when you first open Photoshop, you've never opened it before, and you kind of take a look at the interface. I think the intimidation of not understanding what all of those things are, that sometimes is like the make or break moment, whether someone's really going to get into it or not. So to know that you have a wonderful course where if anybody in the chat is looking to either familiarize themselves more with Photoshop or has never really dove in, kind of dived into it, but wants to, maybe this is a great chance for you to kind of reopen it or dive in for the first time and know that you've got a buddy, you've got a friend who's going to
I
walk you
am
through
your
it.
friend. Please
Yes.
allow me to be your friend.
Don't
And
be
I'm going
afraid
to
of
say this to you. I
it.
don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I've really put my heart and soul into making this. So just watch it for 2 minutes, and I can guarantee you that you're going to like it.
Well, I might have to check it out. Maybe I need a refresh on my Photoshop skills.
Right? But I do have one more favorite. I'm not sure whether it's relevant. It's not Adobe related.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe it is Adobe related now, but back then when Adobe did not introduce AI, and there were
Mm,
other programs that had introduced AI before that. So I made a video where I placed a girl right next to me
hmm,
using AI.
hmm,
And so there was a video. So I had a photo of myself. I actually was a selfie of myself outdoors. So using AI, I just selected that area. You can do it right now with generative fill. I placed a girl right next to me, and just it was an educational video, but just to get some eyeballs, I typed in, "So there is some news." Three dots. People were going crazy, and they thought I really had a lot of people thinking that I'm probably getting married or something. And that was one of the most I would say that video got 100,000 views, and that's very uncommon for my channel, my kind of
hmm.
videos. That video got 100,000 views in 1 hour.
Wow.
It was insane with people clicking on that video. And usually I have about, 2,000, 3,000 views in 1 hour,
Hmm.
because these videos are evergreen videos that people end up searching for in the long term. But that
Hmm.
video was like crazy, blew up. 100,000 views in the first hour, and everybody who knew me was checking that out. So that was a kind of a prank that I pulled. So that was one of my favorites too.
Well,
So
that's like just proof that your personality really comes through in your videos. People love you as well as your content. So when something could be news about you, everyone was like, "We got to know. We have to find out." They rushed to it. They want to know what's going on
nice.
with you.
Nice.
Yeah, we've got like Howard says, good old clickbait. Yeah, sometimes, sometimes we have to get a little creative with our videos. And I like what you said about like, a lot of your videos are evergreen videos where people are kind of like, they're searching for them probably when they've run into a problem, they've run into a
Right.
wall. And you have like that course where people are like, oh, I want to get into Photoshop, so I'm going to look for this course. I will take this course and do these things. But I think that's honestly how I found a lot of your videos myself, is just I'm sitting there in front of Photoshop and I'm like, I don't know how to use this tool. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do what I need to finish this. Where is PiXimperfect? I need him. I need these videos. I need Unmesh to explain this to me. And so I go watch what I need to watch and I come back. But then, you're still in the feed, right? Is that you've helped me so many times that you're there all the time. And so that's kind of I think really insightful just for you to know about your own audience. And so maybe that can be advice as well to everybody who's watching, of like, if you're
I would
making
say
videos, know your audience.
know your audience and have a personality so that they look up to you for you. No,
Hmm.
not just for your videos, but what is your opinion on a particular thing? So, for
Hmm.
example, let's say you watch camera reviews, or let's
Hmm.
say you watch some illustration videos or something new came into Illustrator and you really want some opinion on that. You really want to know what that is.
Hmm.
So sometimes when something new comes up, we know what is there. We know what the new features are. We know what the new buttons do in a camera or whatnot, whatever that is, whatever that you're interested in. But we are often looking for a specific creator as to what
Hmm.
they have to say about it. And the reason
Yes.
we do that is because we uh, we want to know what is his or her opinion on this, because they have become like a friend to us. So not just it is important that if whether you're creating art, whether you're creating videos, you need to have a personality and you need to connect to your audience. It's just so that
Hmm.
they know that they have a friend, even though they cannot go back and forth as much unless there's a live stream. They know that there is somebody who's watching out for them and they can trust that person. So it's
Yeah.
important building that connection.
I agree. I agree 100%. And now we are kind of coming to the end here. And I know that you did have Photoshop up just in case we wanted to kind of
Yeah. Any
experiment.
question, any questions I can answer, or I can do something that people might be interested in.
Yeah, let us know, folks. We are, we don't have too much time left, but I feel like you have a great photo. And honestly, earlier when we were talking about your favorite video being like adding that other person into the photo, my first instinct, I thought you were going to give a friend to her there in the image. I wasn't sure, but that's
No.
kind of interesting, maybe. Or if you have something that you love to show off, maybe you can give us a quick, little intro to something.
All right. Okay. So, well, let me think about it. I can talk about compositing, I can talk about retouching, and
Mm.
I can talk about, I have all the materials prepared. Anytime there's something that I have to talk about, that's fantastic materials there. But anyway, let's talk about a very simple way you can match elements of a composite, because this is one of the most requested things to do in Photoshop. So let's say you have your background and your subject, right?
Hmm.
And for a lot of us, curves can be very complicated. So when you do create a curves adjustment layer, and you're like, okay, so how do I create curves to kind of match this subject with the background? How do I do that?
Hmm.
Well, the first thing to do, of course, whenever you do any change inside of curves, it's going to affect everything. So you want to make
Hmm.
sure that you clip to it. And to do that, you click on this button to create a clipping mask. As simple as that. Now, whatever changes you make will be limited to the subject. Now, I asked this question if I'm on a live audience, is that what is the brightest thing on a photo? What is the brightest thing? What do you think is the brightest thing on a photo? The thing to always remember is that there's going to be nothing brighter than the light source,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And in this case, the light source is the sky, but her jacket is brighter than that. And there should be nothing brighter than the light source. So you have to make sure
Ah.
that that is not brighter than the light source. And we can easily, curves can be automatically adjusted. We can easily adjust that. So let's say you can set the white point to that. First of all, you need to make sure that the symbol is selected, not the mask. This is a thing Adobe needs to fix. By default, they need to select this so that we can sample colors here. Otherwise, it samples the mask. Anyway, so let's double click on the eyedropper, white point eyedropper, and we're going to sample this bright area, right? And we hit OK. Now we are going to, sorry about that sound.
I
Weirdly,
didn't
that's not,
hear it, so maybe it
all
might
right.
be something you heard, unless, yeah, I don't think I heard a sound.
Okay. Um, all right. Now I see it. The thing is, the zoom thing was covering it. No. All right. So now all you need to do is to click on the brightest area of the image. So which area do you think is the brightest? So we're going to click possibly on this area, and it automatically sets that to the sky color. You saw that? So
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
oh, yeah. And then for the dark areas, you double click on this eyedropper and you set that to a dark area like this and you hit OK. No, I don't want to save it as a default. Click on a dark area of this subject and it sets that to the dark area of the background. And it
Wow.
and it automatically goes a long way. Now, on top of
Yes.
that, you can do so many things. For example, you want the colors of the background, you make a copy of the background, and then place it at the top. Now, you want to again limit this background by holding the Alt key or the Option key, click on the
Hmm.
line right there. Now we just want the colors and not the details. So how
Mhm.
do we take away the details? We blur it. Let's go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And we blur it a lot so that all of the details kind of goes away. So we have only the color information right here, maybe
Nice.
about 20. And then we just want the color from it, right? So simply change the blend mode to color. And now you have the color. Now, of course, this is way too much. Simply decrease the opacity. So now even the colors are matching. So I'm going to set the opacity to 40.
That
Now,
looks so good. And I hate to catch you off because I know
yeah,
that you're kind of
sure.
in the
There is
process,
time.
but
Yeah,
we
it's time.
are,
I
yeah,
understand it.
we gotta take off. But that was a lot. That was a lot of really great tips. And you might have converted me to hashtag team curves,
Team
honestly.
curves, right?
You might have
Yeah,
done that.
cool.
But we do have to take off. So if you haven't already, please check out Piximperfect on YouTube, check out the website, and definitely stay tuned because we've got more design goodness coming up after this. But Unmesh, it was so wonderful talking with you today. Thank you so much for
A
sharing
lot
with
of fun.
us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
We'll do it again sometime. All right, folks,
Absolutely.
we'll see you another day. Thank you so much for joining, and please stay tuned.
Don't forget to keep creating. Bye.
Yes.